Hi, and welcome to another digital book talk from Massanutten Regional Library. My name is Susan, and I'm a reference librarian here at the Central Branch. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some books for summer reading. This year, our theme is Tales and Tales. So I've selected books with the word tales in it, books that talk about creatures with tails. So we're going to give you some suggestions for tales to read this summer. And if you haven't signed up for summer reading yet, I encourage you to do so. We are using the Read Squared program this year. So you can go to mrlib.readsquared.com to register, and then you can download the app and do it on your phone, on your iPad. It is easier to register on a web browser, on an actual computer first. So I encourage you to get in there. And for adults, the more you read, the more you log your books. We hold a drawing every weekend. So the more you read, the more likely you are to win. And you'll be notified if you are a winner each week. So, but if you have any questions, please feel free to contact the reference desk at reference@mrlib.org, or you can give us a call at 540-434-4475, extension 122. So I'm going to start with some classic tales. So those include things like A Tale of Two Cities, The Winter's Tale by Shakespeare, The Tale of Genji, and of course the classic The Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. So this was written in the 14th century, and it's a collection of stories, basically of tales told by pilgrims on their way to the cathedral in Canterbury to visit the site of St. Thomas Becket. So there are 30 pilgrims in this story. There are only 24 tales, but some of them are very familiar. The Wife of Bath. They're connected by little interludes, but the general prologue gives a really good description of all the characters. It's very fun. If you haven't looked at it in a while, I would encourage you to look at it again. We have it as a physical book. We also have it as an audio book. So if you want to listen to it, that would probably be very fun too. So The Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer is a great place to start for your tales this summer. The second classic tale I want to remind everybody about this summer is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. This is written in 1859, and it is his story of the French Revolution. It follows the story of Dr. Manet, who's released from the Bastille, and his daughter, his long-lost daughter, who he meets. There's cases of mistaken identity, switched characters. So it's a great read, and it's a fun way to escape the summer heat. So I encourage you to look at that one again. Now I'm going to talk about some more modern tales. The first one I'm going to start with is called The Daughter's Tale by Armondo Lucas Correa. It was published in 2019. This is a World War II story. It starts in 1939. It follows a Jewish family. The husband is put into a camp. The mother and children try and flee. It follows some of the decisions she has to make and what happens to her. And then it moves to 2015, and there's a character, Elsie Duval, who is now living in New York. And she receives a package of letters from her mother written in German. So it's a really good book. I encourage you to check it out. Again, another good tale for the summer. Another great tale, if you like mysteries for this summer, is The Tale Teller by Anne Hillerman. This is a continuation of her father's series. So Tony Hillerman wrote a whole series following a character, Joe Leaphorn, and a couple other characters who show up in this novel as well. It's a mystery. It's set in the Navajo Nation, and so Joe Leaphorn is a detective, and they're trying to track down some artifacts that have gone missing, and so it's a great story. It's probably going to make you feel a little warm, but for summertime, sometimes you want that dry heat that you would get. But I encourage you to pick up The Tale Teller. And then just a couple of more choices for tales this summer. These are by two of my favorite authors. So The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. So there's been a TV show created out of this. There's now a graphic novel. But if you want to go back to the actual novel, this is a great book. It follows Offred and her experiences in the world of Gilead, which is what Margaret Atwood prophesies will happen to the United States. And so it's a great story. If after you read this, you could read the second book she wrote in this series called The Testaments. Another fun author for the summer is Jane Yolen, and this is her book, How to Fracture a Fairy Tale. Jane Yolen is most known for rewriting fairy tales, and this is a bunch of short stories, so if you're looking for quick reads this summer, How to Fracture a Fairy Tale, there's some great retellings of classic fairy tales in here. Very enjoyable, so I encourage you to look at both of those as well. And next we're going to move on to stories with animals with tails, T-A-I-L-S. So there are two kinds of books about animals that I've pulled, so fiction and nonfiction. So we'll start with the fiction. And the first one is Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala, and this is published in 2021, so this is a new book. Again, it's another mystery. It follows a young lady who moves back home after a bad breakup, and she's working in her family's restaurant. It's a Filipino restaurant, and the local food critic comes in, who also happens to be an ex, and she creates this recipe and gives it to him, and he loves the food, but he always gives them bad reviews, so unfortunately he drops dead in the restaurant. So the police suspect the character, Lila, might be a suspicious character in this, and so she has to solve the mystery with the help of her friendly dachshund. So find out how they solve this mystery. It's also a great way to find out about wonderful food. The second fiction book in our Tales collection is The Traveling Cat Chronicles by Hira Arikawa. And this is a really sweet story about a gentleman who, he adopts a cat, but then he realizes he can't keep it. So he basically goes around to his friends and interviews because he doesn't want to leave his cat with just anybody. So he's looking for the perfect person. And the observations go between Nana, who's the cat, and her owner. So it's a wonderful story and really fun to read. And again, you get the cat's perspective, which is always kind of enjoyable. And then finally, to finish up, a couple of true stories about creatures with tails. The first one we're going to start with is A Street Cat Named Bob and How He Saved My Life by James Bowen. So this is a true story about an English street musician, and he found an injured cat, and then the relationship they develop and just how important that becomes, and how the cat really becomes his friend and compatriot, and how it helps him turn his life around. So this is a really sweet and pointed story. So that's our cat friend. And then the other one I want to tell you about is called Sophie, The Incredible True Story of a Castaway Dog by Emma Pearse. And so this is a story about a dog set in Australia. It's a true story. And the dog goes overboard in the Great Barrier Reef, and the owners feel like the dog is lost, but actually she swims 6 miles to an island, which is a nature preserve. And so how does she survive, and how is she rescued? So you follow Sophie's adventures as she exists on this castaway island. So, and we will have a reader's advisory in the library, so there'll be lots more choices for these. But I hope you find something that you enjoy for the dog days of summer, and happy reading.